Hi guys, Darth Deuces here, back with another video. Today we're talking some more Mcfarlane toys, and it is the Kickstarter Spawn figure. So yeah, for a little bit of context, if you're not familiar, about I think over a year ago at this point, Mcfarlane Toys, Todd McFarlane, started a Kickstarter for a remastering of the very first Spawn action figure. And yeah, I backed it. There's a bunch of different versions you could back. There's the one I got, which is the classic version. With no signature. If you got his signature, you can get his signature with them, and you also get another extra little like club accessory. There's a modern Spawn, and there's an artist proof Spawn, which is basically this Spawn that wasn't painted. So I backed it, and the only way you could get this figure, quote unquote, with by retail was backing this Kickstarter. And then it took a long ass time to get the figure. Delays were bound to happen with the whole COVID mess. I expected delays, but the shipping was a nightmare. It was a complete shit show. They used a really weird courier company or something like that. Stuff like mine, for example, sat in the Vancouver harbor for a long time. It sat there for like a whole month, basically, and then took another month to get moving or whatever. Not a whole month to get moving. It took a little longer to get moving, but I eventually got it, so it doesn't really matter that much to me. Hopefully the next Kickstarter, because I'm pretty sure you're going to do that Kickstarter, it will be a better shipping method, and the lessons were learned from that. But yeah, remastering of the classic Spawn figure. This is a really awesome figure. I would definitely, spoiler alert, not be surprised if this is on my top 10 list of the year, or at least halfway through top 10 list of the year, but probably will make it all the way. There's a lot to like about this figure. It does have its drawbacks. I think most people are pretty happy with this figure that got it. I know some people are crying about the articulation a lot, yada yada, this and that and the other thing. This thing is not, it was never meant to be a super articulated thing, if that makes any sense. It's still pretty decently articulated. Like, some people straight up call this thing a statue. I don't understand that. It's not even close to one of those statue action figures that Todd used to do. I'll give an example later. I'm going to do some comparisons with some other Spawn figures I have. But yeah, let's just move on. But first, beforehand, you do get a comic book. And I did actually do an unboxing of this figure. I recorded one, and then that video was way too long, so I'm deciding just to do a standard review. But there's the comic. It's pretty cool. It's on this cardboard backdrop with a plastic covering, so you can keep it nice and safe, which is nice. As red foil around the border and whatnot. I'm pretty sure he redrew the cover, and then the inside is actually all black and white drawings, and I think there might be a foreword about the Kickstarter in there. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that's pretty cool. I usually set that up behind my Spawn figures in my display, so I like that cool little feature. And the original figure came with a comic, so that's also why. But yeah, let's actually talk about the accessories first. He comes with a decent amount of stuff, which is definitely one of the pros of this figure. So moving right on with the accessories that this guy comes with. He comes with a decent amount of stuff, which is definitely one of the big pluses with this figure. First off, the least exciting thing is you do get the display base, which is the standard black disc that he's been doing for pretty much all the figures that's been released with the Mcfarlane toys so far. It is a little different, which you have a actual colored Spawn logo there. It says 94 to 2021, which is cool. And it also says a record-setting action figure. It has something to do with breaking a record on Kickstarter. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. Probably like the most backers or something like that. Oh yeah, always appreciate getting a stand. You get a few sets of hands. You get this open pair of hands, and each pair of hands is sculpted really nicely and painted really nicely, and they've got the bands with the spikes on them, which is pretty cool. These are fairly dynamic open hands. You get a pair of accessory hands, like tight circle accessory hands, which can also double as punching hands, I suppose. And then you get a pair of more open gripping hands with trigger fingers. And as you can see, they all have a fairly nicely thick peg, so these shouldn't break anytime soon, which is really nice. Although I will say, for the grip, both sets of gripping hands, I wish the hinge was the up and down vertical rather than the horizontal. I think that would have been way better for them, but not a huge deal. Get a couple head sculpts. This is the head sculpt on the figure. It is the masked head sculpt, which looks absolutely awesome. Love the green eyes. They don't glow or anything, but the way they're painted, they look like they kind of glow, which is awesome. And the white looks really good with some nice wash going on. You can even kind of see the little bits of his teeth kind of poking through the mask, which is very nice. And then this really awesome head is the unmasked one where he's screaming. It's got this red, or not red, green, like goo-like stuff in the mouth. The teeth all look really nice and painted. The green is very sharp on them. The paint and like the bits of skull and whatever that you can see poking through all looks really nice. One thing to note though is that the way these are sculpted, they're meant to be put on the torso a certain way, and even though you can articulate them, when you do, as you can see, the sculpt kind of ends at certain points when you move it, and I'll show it later. It kind of looks not good, and that is definitely a gripe with this figure. It's not so bad with the mask one because it actually has a point of articulation at the top of the neck, so you can kind of get away with this one a little bit more. And you get a couple weapons. You get this assault rifle, which is really nice. It's black with some silver. The silver has a black wash kind of applied to it. They're pretty cool. Got some scope sights going on, grenade, underslung grenade launcher, and a little like bayonet, sawed bayonet thing here, which is pretty cool. And probably my favorite accessory, this big ass claymore sword. Really cool. I love the sculpt and paint of the hilt. I think that looks really good with the green. You get this awesome ornate detail on the blade, the Spawn logo at the top. I really like this one. This looks really great. And you get a couple of the necroplasm effects or whatever. You get this little knife, which is cool. It actually looks a lot like the knives that came with the Mcfarlane Batman from the gold label. So that's cool. And you also get this effect part. It has like 3 like blasts coming out, which look really nice as well. And you get this where he holds it. And that looks really cool as well. So that's pretty much all of the accessories, or that is all the accessories. So let's now get into the actual figure. So now here's Spawn. I have a couple of different hands on him, and I also have the masked head sculpt on him. The modern version of this figure is a little different in the sense that it has different paint apps, and he also has the larger gauntlet on his arm and the larger boot on one of his feet. This one doesn't have that. You just have the bands, and you don't have the gauntlet on there. And obviously a different color scheme. And he also comes with a couple of different head sculpts as well. But I got this one mainly because he came with the masked one. The modern one doesn't come with the masked head sculpt. But yeah, from an aesthetic standpoint, like I said, very well done. Mcfarlane never, skimps out on the detail parts. And for the most part, it all comes together really nicely. The head sculpt we've already kind of looked at, but looks really great on the head, or on the body rather. The cape looks really nice. It is a plastic cape, and it is also a very solid plastic cape, which is good in the sense that it keeps its shape, bad in the sense it does hinder some articulation. It is also pretty long, so one of the benefits and curses of it is this guy is really stable, because if he's gonna fall, he'll never fall backwards. This cape will catch him pretty much every time, but it also hinders articulation. It makes it harder to get dynamic posing. Same thing with the shoulders here. It does sweep over his shoulders. I think it looks really good, but hinders shoulder articulation. But yeah, he has a real metal for the chain that clasps the cape. He also has real metal for the chains down here. I do think these chains are a little on the big side and proportionally to the rest of the figure. It's not bad by any means, but it could be smaller, and I will show a comparison about what I mean there in a little bit. But yeah, I'm not going to go like too crazy, but he has a nice wash over the figure to bring out the musculature and the sculpted detail. These white bits are actually raised in relief from the rest of the sculpt on the torso, which is really nice, and pretty much everywhere else you see the white stripes on the figure. And I like this one having all the red parts on them that the modern one doesn't have. Pouch on the leg, the bands, all looks really good. Not a whole lot to talk about. One thing you will probably notice, and if you're familiar already know, is his torso is pre-posed. It is kind of posed to be in kind of this twisting motion. It's subtle, but it is there, and you can probably tell. And I know a lot of people weren't a fan of that, and me personally, I'll get more to it in articulation in a second, I would have preferred they did the torso differently, but it doesn't bother me that much how they did it here. Not really. But yeah, you can see, and the cape is also sculpted really nicely, and also has this nice black shading on it to really bring out the detail. And yeah, in terms of his look, it definitely comes off as premium. It's really, really nice. We might as well talk right about articulation. This guy can pose 100%. You can get poses out of this guy. Can you get crazy dynamic poses, him jumping all around, doing all this stuff, karate, all this? No, you can't do that. That was never the intention of the figure. It was never meant to be an SH Figure Arts Spawn. It was meant to be a modernization of the original figure to look really good, come with cool accessories, premium stuff and all that. And I think they still have incorporated a decent amount of articulation in this, where it's comparable to domestic lines currently. But you do have, for this head sculpt, you have a ball joint at the top of the neck as well as that joint at the base. Like I said, when you move the base, it's not as, like I said, not as apparent with this one, but as you can see, the sculpt kind of breaks up when you move it. It does not a big deal with this head. It's more of a big deal with the other one, which I'll show in a moment. The shoulders, you can move them out almost 90. You can push them forward about this far, almost all the way out. I do wish they went a bit further. It's not bad, but I do wish they go a little further. You can rotate them as well. There is a single hinge in the elbow, which moves pretty much 90. Which is good. Obviously double hinges would have been good, but the hinges here move about as good as, you know, your standard Black Series or whatnot. You have the wrist hinge and the rotation, which moves absolutely fine. Torso around here isn't articulated. They were originally going to do some sort of rubber overlay and give them the torso joint. They didn't do that. I would have liked to see the torso joint like they did with the Mortal Kombat Spawn, but that's okay. There is a joint at the waist, so you can rotate, and you also get a decent amount of pivot actually, and you also get a little bit of crunch and a little bit of back, which is basically useless because the cape gets in the way, and the crunch isn't super significant. So that definitely is a problem with articulation. Don't get me wrong, it's a flaw, but it's not a huge one, I don't think. It doesn't bother me that much, but if you are a real peddler for articulation, then yes, of course it's going to bother you. I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm just saying people are blowing the articulation on this figure way out of proportion, complaining a little too much. The hips pretty much do a full split, so that's really good. And they also kick forward a decent amount, not super crazy, but it's pretty good. And they move back a fair amount as well. They rotate up at the top. There's also a swivel cut at the pouches here for the thigh. Double hinges at the knees, which move quite well. And you have swivel cuts at both calves. Hinges at the ankles, which move up really well, down really well. Pivots that are pretty good, and you have toe articulation that is kind of useless, but you know, I don't mind having it any either. So you can definitely pose this guy around. He's not a statue. Don't let anyone tell you that, and don't believe anyone that says that. It's not crazy articulated. I think some people have been a little spoiled by SH Figuarts and some of the crazier Marvel Legends. This guy's articulation is definitely serviceable. Is it perfect? God no. God no. It's not perfect. It's not even the best articulated Spawn currently out there, even in recent years. But it's not bad. It's not a statue. You can get fairly decent standard pose, and then you can get him in a completely different pose, and it doesn't look awkward. And I will give you another comparison to kind of prove my point there. But yeah, I will actually put a few accessories in his hands and swap out the head just so you can see that. So you can pop the head in here. It can be a little... Oh, there we go. So like I said, the head sculpt is meant to be put on this way, looking off like this. It's not meant to be moved. You can move it. And some spots like this doesn't look that bad because the sculpt of the cape kind of hides the sculpt that is not, you know, actually sculpted here. But like if you go over like this, all you can see a big spot there where it's just this flat, breaks up the sculpt completely. So that is another issue. I don't know why they made this separate point of articulation at the top of the neck with the masthead, then do it with this one. It doesn't really make much sense. But giving him some of his accessories, I'll show you the Necro effect with the circular grip hand. You can just slide the effect in. It goes, I like how it wraps around his hand like that, and he's shooting out the effect. So that's pretty cool. To put the sword in his hand, you can actually, or what you're supposed to do, you have to take off the pommel. I think this is called the pommel anyways, I might be wrong. Slide the sword in, and then put the pommel back on. Like that, and then he holds it really well, and the sword looks absolutely awesome. Love how that looks. And then the gun, you can just push it in, twist it, his trigger finger in there, and then there he is holding the gun, and I think that looks super good. And quickly I will put him in a pose so you can kind of see what you can do. So as you saw throughout the entire review, I had him in a standard neutral standing pose. And now, with just a little bit of work, I have him in a full action pose. So you can definitely pose this guy around. This guy's not a statue. People need to stop calling this a statue. Come on. Come on. It's not a statue. I know I've harped on that a lot this video, and I apologize for that, but it actually bugs me that people call this a statue. I get it. If you're not happy with the articulation, I get it, but don't call it something it's not, right? But anyways, put them down. I'm going to just kind of get them neutraled up here. I want to, oh yeah, also one thing I didn't mention is the cape is articulated. There's pin hinges on each side, so you can move them. You can move them out, or you can move them all the way back if you want to, but that looks kind of weird. But you can move them out. You can move them inwards as well. This one goes in about that far on this side. This one, if I move the arm, can actually pretty much fully engulf them, so you can have them a bit more engulfed in the cape if you want, so I like that. I know people wanted a soft goods wired cape. I don't know how anyone could ever have that expectation from Mcfarlane Toys. I had very little doubt they were ever going to actually do that. Yeah, let's push them back here, and I'll do some quick comparisons with some other figures. So first off, on my point with the statue, this figure is a statue. This is the Color Tops Commando Spawn, and this guy was literally meant to be in the pose that I have him in right now, and literally has pointlessly cut joints. They literally just went around, put in and cut in random joints that are useless, like swivel cut thighs that do nothing, hinges in the knees that actually make the figure worse in stability wise, hinges in the elbows that basically do nothing for you, a joint in the neck that basically does nothing. So you can just barely alternate the pose that he was always meant to be in. Whereas with the new Kickstarter Spawn, you can do a lot of different stuff with. That's kind of the point I'm trying to make. Here he is with another classic Spawn, which I actually got the day before I got this Kickstarter Spawn for a damn good deal. It is the, I would say, fairly sought after 10th anniversary classic Spawn. And you can see kind of how they stack up together. And both these figures are super awesome. I'm super happy to own both of them. But like I was saying, the chains on this guy the links are a lot smaller. I think these are the chains that should have been on this one here. These ones, like I said, I think are a bit too big. But these kind of goes for two different looks, and to a degree, this guy's got the cape that kind of fully sweeps over and engulfs him. This one's flashed out all the way. This one definitely has better articulation for the most part. But they do two different things. I'm going to have this guy pose on the display base he has, and this guy's going to be doing something else. There's that comparison. Here he is with the probably biggest comparison people will be doing with this figure, which is the Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn. And these guys are both excellent figures. Like, unless you're a really, really crazy Spawn fan, I would just stick with the Mortal Kombat Spawn, not waste $200+ if not more on the Kickstarter Spawn. That's the only way you're gonna be able to get it now. The Mortal Kombat Spawn is still more than sufficient for a good Spawn figure. And yeah, this one's my modern Spawn, this one's my classic Spawn. This is the Spawn. This one is funner to pick up off the shelf, pose around, and play with and all that. There's no question in my mind. It's a better articulated figure. It's funner to play with. This one's much more of a display piece, but that doesn't mean you can't pose this one. This one still poses pretty well. They both pose well, but this one is better. I'm not going in terms of that regard. If you are more of an articulation person, you value articulation over everything else, stick with Mortal Kombat Spawn 100%. And then just for fun, here he is with the recently released Mandarin Spawn. You can see how they stand together just for some fun. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about this figure. This video is already pretty long, so I don't really want to go any further with it. But I think this is an excellent figure, super cool. I do not regret backing it whatsoever. I'm very happy with it. I get some people who aren't so happy with it. There were things that were said that didn't happen. I think he originally said the cape was going to be removable, and it's not. You have to heat it up, pry off the glue and all that stuff. So that's something, I guess. Some points of articulation didn't end up happening, but it's still a decently articulated figure. It looks amazing, great accessories. I'm happy I backed it. Can I recommend this for buying this off the secondary market? It kind of comes up to you if you think it's worth the extra money or not. If you didn't back it, I can't say it is, but I didn't have to pay that, so it's hard for me to kind of make that judgment. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this figure down below in the comments below. If you like this one, or do you prefer the Mortal Kombat 11 spawn? I think they both served, two different purposes in my collection, but I know people have their preferences. They're both really great figures in my opinion, so it kind of comes down to subjectivity in that point. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out my Instagram, link in the description below, where I post pretty much every day on all toy related stuff. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. See you guys on the next one.